Welcome to the latest edition of the Out of the Mouth of Babes Bible series. As always, we're coming to you with a lesson straight and strictly out of the Bible. Today, we're dealing with a lesson. Oh, first and foremost, for those who don't know me, my name is Brother Brandon. Reading for me today is my son, Brandon Jr. And as I was saying, today we're dealing with a lesson titled, After That Ye Have Suffered a While. I repeat, after that ye have suffered a while. And that is that's part of a scripture that we're going to read in today's lesson. And the scripture that phrase is being taken from is actually pointing us in the direction of what the lesson today is about. And that is when you are serving the word or serving the Lord or trying to serve the Lord, we have to understand, the Bible lets us know that we are going to go through countless different trials, tribulations, persecutions, things of that nature. So that's something that we like to teach or show people because in most cases, gospel, the word gospel itself is the definition of that is good news. So when most people find out about the word of God or they find out about the path to righteousness, they usually have the idea in their head that things are going to be on the up and up from that point on. And that may be the case because once you understand how to save yourself, things actually are on the up and up. But what people don't expect and what we try to warn people of all the time is that immediately once you get on what we like to call the path of righteousness, things are going to start happening in your life that's going to try to throw you off that path. And those things usually come in the form of persecutions, trials, sufferings, temptations, and things of that nature. Because our adversary, as we know and can read, is the devil. And his number one goal is to destroy the creation of God. And by doing that, he's going to try to trip us up along the way. And he doesn't want us on the path to righteousness. He doesn't want us on the road to salvation. So once you find the road and once you start living and actually walking the path that God has set forth for us to walk, Satan is immediately going to come and he's going to immediately try to throw you off that path. So we have to understand ultimately that serving the Lord is going to be rough. Serving the Lord is going to be hard. As one of my teachers used to say all the time, making it to the kingdom is going to be the hardest thing you ever do in life. And that's why we warn people. That's why the Bible warns people to look forward to the trials and tribulations that's going to come along with doing the right thing. And the reason I kind of put this lesson together is because I was reading a post on Facebook not too long ago from a guy that I follow, brother I used to play chess with. And I know it's not an original post, but it struck me as, it struck home with me, I should say. And the post said something, I'm not exactly remembering exactly, but what it was really trying to get you to understand is that nobody suffers harder than somebody that's trying to do right. And when I read that post, I immediately hit the like button because once you start doing right, here comes all the problems. Here comes all the headaches. Here come all the stumbling blocks. Here comes all the negative energy from everything and everybody around you to make you not do right. So we got to understand that and we have to look forward to it. Because if we assume that things is going to be rosy and easy going once you start serving the Lord, then you are in for a rude awakening, a very rude awakening. So it's best to prepare yourself for the road ahead and understand that it's going to be hard. It's going to be bumps along the way. So, like I said again, the title of today's lesson is After That Ye Have Suffered a While. And like I said, that's the scripture. That's part of a scripture that we're going to read. It's actually going to be our closing scripture today. But we're going to start off today in Luke, the 14th chapter. Luke, the 14th chapter. And we're going to pay attention to something Jesus had to say right here. Because Jesus is the prototype. Jesus is actually the blueprint on how you please God, how you walk the walk perfectly and stay on the correct path to righteousness. And on that path, Jesus suffered countless persecutions. He suffered countless tribulations. He had millions of people, against him and trying to do him harm. So he's warning us of what we need to do and how we need to consider the walk ahead of us before we even start the process. So like I said, today the title is After That Ye Have Suffered a While. And we're going to start in Luke, the 14th chapter. And when you get there, I want my son to start reading at verse 27. Luke 14 and 27. When you get there, my son, go ahead.
And whosoever does not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple.
Okay, so now this is what we all should be striving to be. We all should be striving to be a disciple of Christ. And that's pretty much just saying you a follower of his. And that's the only way you're going to make it into the kingdom of heaven is becoming a disciple of Christ. So what is the first rule he give you? Right here that we're reading. Read that verse again. I'm sorry, verse 27.
And whosoever doth not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple.
He's telling you about bearing your cross. Now, what does the cross represent? The cross is how they killed him. And he had to carry his own cross on his way to his execution. And Jesus is letting you know, point blank right here, you have to be ready to take this same long walk to execution for the most part, to be worthy of being his disciple. You have to be willing to die to find yourself in God's good graces, because anything else, you're not fully committed for the most part. So you have to be fully committed throughout the good and the bad. And the Bible lets us know, Christ is letting us know right here, it's going to be a lot of bad. It's going to be a whole lot of bad. In most cases, more bad than good. So he said, whosoever doth not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Go ahead.
For which of you, intending to build a tower, sitteth not down first, and counteth the cost, whether ye have sufficient to finish it.
Okay, so now he relates the walk to somebody that's doing a building experiment or some form of construction. He calls it a tower here. And just like everything you set your path to start doing, you have to make sure that you can complete the task ahead of you. So he's letting you know. So if you're trying to build a tower and you don't have the funds or the ability to get the bricks you need, then there's no point in even starting the process, in other words. So what he's letting you know here is, if you're not fully committed, if you're not finna put all you have into staying the course and walking the path of righteousness, then you better off not even doing it. You're better off not even, starting the process, because there's a scripture Revelation that lets you know God hates a lukewarm individual. And what do I mean by lukewarm? That means you're kind of straddling the fence. God said he would rather you be hot or cold. You can read that scripture in Revelation on your own. I'm not sure what chapter. But he said he would rather you be hot or cold than be lukewarm. Either be all the way this way or all the way that way. All the way good or all the way bad. The choice is yours. But being in the middle, straddling the fence, you're going to be still considered to be in the bad category. So you have to understand going into this, the effort and the endurance and the perseverance is going to take to complete this walk of righteousness. This is not going to be just a simple stroll in the park. This is walking through a war zone. So you have to consider that when you start this and understand the seriousness of it. Read verse 28 again. I'm sorry.
For which of you, intending to build a tower, sitteth not down first and counteth the cost, whether he have sufficient to finish it.
Okay, so you have to make sure that you have what it takes to do this the right way. You have to train yourself and prepare yourself to complete the walk. And not just start it, complete the walk. Keep going, verse 29.
Lest haply, after he have laid the foundation and is not able to finish it, all that behold it begin to mock him.
Because see, you don't want to start the process and not see it all the way through. The Bible lets us know plainly, he that sins willfully after learning the knowledge of truth, there remaineth no more sacrifice for sins. So once you come up under the blood of this covenant, you come up under the blood of Christ, and you get baptized and you start this walk, you have to make sure that you're serious. That's why we take baptism real seriously. We don't be baptizing children and people that don't know what's ahead of them or don't know the seriousness of serving the Lord with good intentions, pure intentions. Where you at? What verse you at, son?
Verse 31.
Verse 30. You have verse 30, I believe. But read verse 29 again.
Lest haply, after he hath laid the foundation, and is not able to finish it, all that behold it begin to mock him, saying, This man began to build, and was not able to finish.
You don't want to be that. You don't want to start the process and not finish it. Keep going.
Or what king, going to make war against another king, sitteth not down first, and consulteth, whether he be able with 10,000 to meet him, cometh against him with 20,000. Or else, while the other is yet a great way off, he sendeth an ambassage, and desireth conditions of peace. So
he also even compares the walk to a king going to war. Anything that, so what he's telling you is he's trying to show you the seriousness of walking the right, true and righteous path. And the commitment is going to take. Not mental, but also even emotional, physical, all these things are going to come into play when you're trying to serve the Lord. Because Satan is going to do whatever he can do to throw you off the path. You can know that he's going to use your family, he's going to use your friends, he's going to use your loved ones, he's going to use your children, he's going to use anything and everybody to throw you off. Because he don't want to see you make it into the kingdom. He don't want to see you pleasing God. So this is what we have to know. This is what we have to consider. Like the Bible says, consider the cost. We have to consider what this is going to cost us. And once you consider what it's going to cost you, let's say, for instance, this is a common thing that we come across in the word. People coming to the truth, and immediately their family just turn their back on them. Turn their back on them. Tell them they're in a cult, or tell them that they've been brainwashed. I've heard all type of negative responses to just somebody strictly telling their family that they're going to do what they can read in the Bible. And I always found that odd because, everything else is accepted, but good. You can tell your family that you are joining a satanic cult, and they will embrace that more than you telling them that you're going to start going to church on Saturday because you are doing the right thing. So naturally, everybody is going to be against you. So you have to consider that. Because if you was to walk into the house and tell your family, okay, look, I'm not eating pork no more. I'm not going to church with y'all on Sunday no more. And then you automatically just get the boot. Your mama call you the devil, like one of my brothers was called by his own mother, and tell you that you have to leave. You can't receive that persecution and then let that throw you off. See, but it's easier when you know that's what's ahead. And that's what Jesus is letting us know. You have to understand what's ahead of you before you start this path. So you won't be caught off guard when the world turns its back on you, or when your wife or your kids or your mother or your father or your sister, your brother turn their back on you. So that's what he said in verse 31. He said, or what king going to make it war against another king sitteth not down first and consulted whether he be able with 10,000 to meet him that cometh against him with 20,000. You wouldn't walk into that fight without considering it. You wouldn't walk into a fight where you are outmatched by double without considering a game plan on how you're going to make up the lack of numbers that you have. So you can't walk into the fight of trying to make it into the kingdom or pleasing God or walking the righteous path without considering what losses may come along the road. Because if you're not considering that, then you're going to be caught off guard, and that's going to cause you to stumble. So that's why we warn you. That's why the Bible warns you. Verse 32 is where you at, right?
Correct.
Keep going.
Or else, while the other is yet a great way off, he sendeth an ambassage and desireth conditions of peace.
So it gets to the point to where if the king realizes that he's finna be fighting a losing battle, you might try to attempt to make peace. But keep going.
So likewise, whosoever he be of you that forsaketh not all that he hath, he cannot be my disciple.
So you have to be willing to lose it all, is what Jesus is telling you. You have to go into this walk knowing it may cost you everything. It may cost you friendships. It may cost you a marriage. It may cost you jobs, homes, cars. You got to be willing to lose it all, because that's what comes along with doing the right thing, the righteous thing. You are going to suffer. That's just how it is. So that's why we warn you. But let's keep going. Let's go to 2 Timothy. 2 Timothy, the 3rd chapter. Because we all know, just from our little lives or our little experiences, doing doing wrong is always easy. You know, Satan is always going to make the wrong way the more comfortable way. The things that you shouldn't do is going to, in a lot of cases, be the most convenient. Because that's how Satan is stacking the deck up against you. So you would choose the more convenient but evil path. What I say? 2 Timothy 3. And when you get there, we're just going to read one verse here. Read verse 12. 2 Timothy, the 3rd chapter. Just pay attention to this one verse we're going to read right here. Paul is going to echo the same sentiment that we've been saying from here on out. Go ahead.
Yea, and all that will live godly in Christ Jesus shall suffer persecution.
Pay attention. The word is all. All that will live godly in Christ Jesus shall suffer persecution. So nobody's exempt from this. Nobody's exempt. Satan is not forgetting to persecute you. No, he's an all-knowing being. He's gonna check you off that list. He's gonna try you. He's gonna attempt to damage the path that you are on in any way that he can. He's gonna try to throw you off. That's why Paul wrote this. Yea, and all that will live godly in Christ Jesus shall suffer persecution. So nobody's exempt from this. So this is why we must warn people what to look forward to along the road. Because persecution coming. It's definitely going to come. Let's go back to something Jesus had said. Let's go to Mark. Because Jesus gave you a parable here in Mark. We're not going to read the entire parable. But it's pretty much the parable of the sower. It's a common parable, I would say, for those who understand or read the Bible. And he was explaining to you the different avenues or the different instances of how people may come across the word of God. And each and every one of us that found God at one point or another falls in one of these categories. Falls in definitely one of these categories. Mark, the 4th chapter. And we're going to take a part out the parable. It's a good parable. You can read it all on your own. But we're just going to deal with a portion of it this evening. Mark 4, and when you get there, start reading at verse 16. And this is the passage, this is the parable of the sower, but we're going to skip down into it to what really applies to what we are talking about today. Mark 4 and verse 16. When you get there, my son, go ahead.
And these are they likewise, which are sown on stony ground, who when they have heard the word, immediately receive it with gladness. Okay,
so now we're getting to the people that he said were sown on stony ground. And he compared that to the people that hear the word. And once you hear the word of God, like most people do, they're excited. They want to go tell all their friends, want to tell all their families, look what I found. Look what I found. We're not supposed to be celebrating Christmas. That's pagan, mama. We're not supposed to be eating pork. That's a sin, Father. Or your brother or your sister. You want to share it with them because it's good news. The gospel is good news. But this is how it's going to be received from those who don't want to hear it. He said, read that verse again.
And these are they likewise, which are sown on stony ground,
who
when they have heard the word, immediately receive it with gladness.
They immediately receive it with gladness. Go ahead.
And have no root in themselves, and so endure before a time.
And have no root in themselves. You got to be rooted. You have to be rooted. And that's kind of where the preparation, the considering comes in at. See, if you know what's around the corner, then you're not going to be caught off guard by it. So that's kind of how you ground yourself. Considering and understanding what's coming around the road is going to help you root yourself further into the ground so you can stand strong and stand firm. Because then you can say, I heard that was going to happen. I heard my mother was going to dislike me. I heard my job was going to fire me because I won't come in on Saturday no more. I've heard all these things. So when it happens, you won't be caught off guard. You'll be more rooted. So he said, read that verse.
And have no root in themselves, and so endure before a time.
For a time. Go ahead.
Afterward, when affliction or persecution arises for their word's sake, immediately they are offended.
But you see what he said? He said, afterward, though, because it's always the afterward, when affliction or persecution arises for the word's sake. See, because all you trying to do is what the word of God tells you to do. This is not nothing you made up on your own. This is not nothing I came up with. I haven't wrote a page in this book. I haven't created none of this. So everything that I do or I read or we all read or do out of this book, this is the word. So this is for the word's sake. So he said, afterward, when affliction or persecution arises for the word's sake, immediately they are offended. They are offended. Go ahead.
And these are they which are sown among thorns, such as hear the word.
Okay, I'm sorry, we was done there. So you can't let what others or what anybody do to you affect how you serve the Lord. That's pretty much what he wants you to understand here. And you can't be, and you would be offended if you didn't know that's what was going to come around the corner. That's what he's letting you know here. And you have to be careful as you tell people and as you try to spread the word to how you take the negative responses that's going to come along with it. Because it's going to be negative. People going to call you crazy. People going to call you brainwashed. People going to call you all type of names. People are literally, it's going to come to the point, people are really going to try to do you harm for the word's sake. So you can't be offended. You can't allow that to offend you. You just have to have a strong stance and stay rooted and endure all things that Satan is going to bring against you. Let's go to Hebrews, the 6th chapter. Hebrews, the 6th chapter. Hebrews, the 6th chapter. And we're going to read a little bit here, starting at verse 11. Hebrews 6 and verse 11. And when you get there, go ahead.
And we desire that every one of you do show the same diligence to the full assurance of hope unto the end.
Mm-hmm. But he's talking about diligence, because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take diligence. Go ahead.
That ye be not slothful, but followers of them who through faith and patience inherit the promises.
Because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take faith and patience. It's going to take faith for you to understand that God is going to see you through whatever you got to go through. You can't think that. You can't get to the point when everybody turn their back on you or you start suffering persecution or you start being afflicted for doing the right thing. You can't get to the point to feel as if you're forsaken. See, because that's what Satan wants you to think. Satan wants you to believe that you're doing something wrong when you're doing the right thing. He wants you to go along with what everybody else is going to try to tell you about doing the right thing, because he don't want you on the right path. So read that verse again. What verse was that?
Verse 11.
Read it again.
And we desire that every one of you do show the same diligence to the full assurance of hope unto the end.
Unto the end. Go ahead.
That ye be not slothful, but followers of them who through faith and patience inherit the promises.
Mm-hmm.
For when God made promise to Abraham, because he could swear by no greater, he swore by himself.
Mm-hmm.
Saying, surely blessing I will bless thee, and multiplying I will multiply thee.
Mm-hmm.
And so, after he had patiently endured, he obtained the promise.
After Abraham patiently endured, because Abraham went through many trials and tribulations. Abraham wasn't even showed the path to righteousness by God until he was about 75 years old. So he had to So just imagine that right there. You're living a certain way. You're living with your family. You've had this lifestyle for 75 years. And then God appeared to Abraham in a vision and told him to just turn his back on all of it. Leave your father's house. And we're going to read that. But just imagine that. Just imagine how that probably was accepted by his loved ones and his family members. That conversation probably didn't go over well. Especially when you telling them about a God that they know nothing about. They had their own gods that they were serving. They had their own practices that they were practicing. But God told Abraham, all right, you need to put that away and get on this path that I'm finna put you on. And Abraham did that, but it was a lot of hardships along the road. A lot of hardships along the road. That's why I said verse 15, and so after he had patiently endured, he obtained the promise. Because you have to endure to the end, people. You can't endure for a little while. You can't say, oh, look, I served the Lord for 5 years. I'm done. This is too difficult. My family has outcast me. I've lost homes. I lost jobs. This has cost me too much. This is too much for me to bear. No, you can't get to that point. And the easiest way to prepare yourself not to get to that point is to consider that before you even start. And not forget that. And know that's what's coming. Just know that's what's coming. Persecution coming. But let's keep going. We're going to go pick up a little bit of what Abraham went through. Just a little bit. Let's go to Genesis, the 12th chapter. Genesis, the 12th chapter. Because we read the Bible a lot. And there's a lot of feel-good, good stories in the Bible. Trust and believe me, there are. There are. But by far, there are more sad and depressing stories in the Bible. 40 times as much more. Because that's what you need to be worried about. That's what you need to be looking forward to. Yeah, the Bible is a whole feel-good book. Everybody happy. Everybody married. Everybody smiling. Everybody just doing the right thing. Then guess what? This walk will be easy. But see, the Lord knows this walk is not easy. So he's giving you countless and countless examples of hard times. So you be looking forward to the hard times ahead. Genesis, the 12th chapter. And when you get there, I want you to start reading at verse 1. And this is when Abraham first started interacting with God. Genesis 12 and verse 1. When you get there, my son, go ahead.
Now the Lord has said unto Abram, get thee out of the country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee. Okay, so this is the Lord talking to Abraham, and he's telling him to turn his back on everything that he's ever known. And he's known these things, like I said, for about 75 years. But keep going. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed.
Mm-hmm.
So Abram departed, as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran.
Okay, so at 75 years old, I'm pretty sure Abraham was well established. He probably had a good life going on. He's worked up until this point to build up things and collect things. And from what I can understand, he probably was doing just fine. But the Lord told him at 75 years old, all right, look, let all that go. And I'm finna show you the way that you should walk. And Abraham did it. It says, so Abraham departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. Go ahead.
And Abram took Sarah, his wife, and Lot, his brother's son, and all their substance that they had gathered, and the souls that they had gotten in Haran, and they went forth to go into the land of Canaan. And into the land of Canaan they came. Okay, so not only did he have quite a few things, but he had souls. So he had servants. He had people that worked for him. Abraham had a whole life built where he was at that time. But the path to righteousness wasn't where he was at. He had to depart from that. He had to separate himself from everything he's built, everything he's accomplished.
And that's what God is expecting each and every one of us to do. We have to be willing to separate ourselves from everything that held any value to us. That's why Paul made the statement, I count it all dung. That's what he counts everything that he had or his personal things that he accomplished or things that he built. He said he had to count it all dung. He had to look at it like doo-doo, because in comparison to what the Lord has for you, you have to look at it like that. So you would stay the course. You can't be looking back. You can't be worried about, oh man, I left a real nice house back in Beverly Hills or something like that. You can't be worried about that. You can't be worried about that at all. So he said, did you read verse 5?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, verse 6, keep going.
And Abram passed through the land unto the place of Sichem, and unto the plain of Moreh, and the Canaanite was with them in the land.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lord appeared unto Abram and said, Unto thy seed will I give this land. And there builded he an altar unto the Lord, who appeared unto him.
So the Lord showed him the land that he was intended to give to Abraham's descendants later on down the road, but it was for Abraham. Abraham, the Bible knows, was a pilgrim in the land. It wasn't his land. He didn't own that land. He just posted up somewhere and he lived off the land. What he had and what he owned, he left behind. Keep going.
And he removed from thence unto a mountain on the east of Bethel, and pitched his tent, having Bethel on the west and Hai on the east.
Mm-hmm.
And there he built an altar unto the Lord, and called upon the name of the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And Abram's journey, going on still toward the south.
He's on this road. He's on this path that God is leading him down. And he's not straying to the left or the right. He's staying on the path. And he doesn't even know where he's going. In a lot of cases, as we're going to see real soon, circumstances dictate where he ended up becoming or ended up at. Circumstances was changing his location or his route, because that's the persecution. That's the hard bumps along the road. So it said, verse 9, and Abraham journeyed going on still toward the south. Go ahead at verse 10.
And there was a famine in the land.
And there was a famine in the land. Go ahead.
And Abram went down into Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was grievous in the land.
For the famine was grievous in the land. So now not only has Abraham left everything that he's accustomed to, and he left his family, and he turned his back on everything that he's built up until this point, 75 years of building, but now he get out here and immediately things are going bad. There's a famine. People starving. People can't eat. They can't feed themselves. They can't properly take care of themselves. This is along the road to righteousness for Abraham. So he just has to do like the Lord lets you know you got to do, and that's just roll with the punches. So guess what he had to do? The famine forced him into Egypt, into another foreign land, just so he could kind of seek refuge for it. Where's you at?
Verse 11.
Go ahead.
And it came to pass, when he was come near to enter into Egypt, that he said unto Sarah his wife, Behold now, I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore it shall come to pass, when the Egyptians shall see thee, that they shall say, This is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will save thee alive.
Mm-hmm. So now circumstance, bumps along the road because of the famine, has forced them to seek refuge in Egypt. And not only is he seeking refuge in the land still that he knows nobody, he's a pilgrim. He's not from Egypt. He doesn't have any background built in Egypt. But now he gets there, and now he has to fend for his life for the most part, because he got a beautiful wife. So it's like, oh man, I'm sure a lot of people would be like, you know what, I'm just gonna go back home. I ain't got time for this. I go back home where my family is at, and you know, we can put our minds together and try to weather the storm. But no, Abraham didn't do that. He did as he was instructed, and he stayed on the path, and he put everything behind him in the past. And he took whatever came along with this walk that God put him on, and he took it with stride. So not only so he's dealing with a famine, and now he has to try to work out some grand scheme to keep his wife because she was beautiful. What verse was you at?
Verse 13.
Read verse 12.
Therefore it shall come to pass, when the Egyptians shall see thee, that they shall say, This is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will save thee alive.
You see that? Keep going.
Say, I pray thee, thou art my sister, that it may be well with me for thy sake, and my soul shall live because of thee.
So they had to kind of pretty much deceive the people of Egypt so they wouldn't kill him. You see, because it's not like these days where, dudes have no problems laying with another man's wife. That was greatly frowned upon back in the older days. That was greatly frowned upon. So as long as a woman was married to another man, they wouldn't deal with her. But the Egyptians, they found a way around that rule. Just kill the man. Then she free. And Abraham knew that's what they was going to do. So he had to maneuver a little bit. And that's what walking the path of righteousness will force you to do. That's why we have these stories. So you learn how to maneuver. You learn how to move in a room full of vultures, as one of the rappers say. Because you are going to find yourself surrounded by vultures. You're going to find yourself surrounded by people who are going to attack you in one way or another just because you're on the right path. Just like Abraham found himself in the same situation right here. What verse you at?
Verse 14.
Go ahead.
And it came to pass that when Abram was coming to Egypt, the Egyptians beheld the woman, that she was very fair.
Mm-hmm.
The princess also of Pharaoh saw her and committed her before Pharaoh. And the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house.
And she was taken. So now, not only has Abraham left everything he's known at 75 years old, so he wasn't a young man. He's a quite older man. And he's put everything that he's ever known in his rear view. But he got out here and ran into famines, and now somebody then took his wife, and he has to endure all these things. And trust, most importantly, that God is going to see him through on the other side of this. But that's where the faith comes in. See, but it would be easy to lose faith if you wasn't prepared, if you wasn't mentally prepared to deal with the persecution that was going to come along the road. That's why you have to be mentally prepared. And the Lord saw him through it, but he had to endure all these things. And he had to do a whole lot of other things. We're not going to read it all. You can read the story of Abraham in your free time. But this is not the only time his wife was taken. Another king of Ham, I think his name was Abimelech, took her again. So he had countless instances where he had to deal with the hardships of doing the right thing and following the path that God set him on. And he stayed the path. He endured the path like we just read in Hebrews. But we're going to keep going. Let's go to Romans, the 5th chapter. Romans, the 5th chapter. So we got to mentally prepare ourselves to deal with the hardship that's going to come with doing the right thing, people. We got to be mentally prepared. And that's what the Lord is doing by giving us all these stories and all these examples. So you won't be caught off guard. Because you would assume, the average person assumes, from my experience, that once they find the truth, the same joy that they felt, the same gladness that the truth or the word of God brought to their lives, they assume that that's going to be the same way the next person is going to accept it. But that's not how it works. That's not how it works at all. The next person, more than likely, are going to be against you. They're going to be your adversary. They're going to try to bring you back to the path that you were on previous to you finding the true and righteous path. We at Romans, though. Romans, the 5th chapter. And I want you to start reading at verse 2. Romans, the 5th chapter and verse 2. When you get there, go ahead.
By whom also we have access by faith into this grace wherein we stand and rejoice in hope of the glory of our God. Mm-hmm. And not only so, but we glory in tribulations also.
He said you have to glory in tribulations because they coming. They are coming. They are around the corner. And you have to glory in them. Why do you have to glory in them? Go ahead.
Knowing that tribulation worketh patience.
Tribulation worketh patience. Dealing with the rough trials ahead of you when you serving a true and living God, for the lack of a better word, is character building. See, dealing with hard times, that builds character. See, if everything is rosy and peachy and easy, That's not character building. It's easy to go with that flow. See, but when it's a bumpy road and you constantly hitting brick walls and you constantly facing negativity, oh yeah, that's character building. That's going to teach you patience. Go ahead.
And patience, experience, and experience, hope.
Mm-hmm.
And the hope maketh not ashamed, because the love of God is shed abroad in our hearts by the Holy Ghost, which is given unto us.
So he lets you know, and patience brings experience, and experience brings hope. So these are all good character traits that the Lord is trying to instill in us by the tribulations he's taken us through along the path of righteousness. That's what he's doing. And he's been doing that since day one, even going way back to the children when he came and got Abraham's descendants out of the slavery in the land of Egypt. Let's just pay attention to what he says here. Let's go to Deuteronomy, the 8th chapter. And let's just pay attention to what Moses wrote here. Deuteronomy, the 8th chapter. See, the Lord is trying to make you better. And you don't get better by happiness all the time. That's not character building. Deuteronomy, I said the 8th chapter, right? Mm-hmm. Start reading at verse 1. And just pay attention to what Moses was telling the children of Israel. And just pay attention to what the Lord took them through and the reason he did it. Deuteronomy 8. And when you get there, start at verse 1. Deuteronomy the 8th chapter and verse 1. When you get there, my son, go ahead.
All the commandments which I command thee this day shall ye observe to do, that ye may live and multiply, and go in and possess the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers.
Because he swore, remember, we just read, he swore unto Abraham that his descendants was going to inherit this land. So now they're there. But let's pay attention to the road that they had to travel to get there. Go ahead, verse 2.
And thou shalt remember all the way which the Lord thy God led thee these 40 years in the wilderness, to humble thee and to prove thee, to know what was in thine heart, whether thou wouldest keep his commandments or no.
You see that? And he said, and thou shalt remember all the way which the Lord thy God led thee these 40 years. The Lord led them 40 years in the wilderness to humble thee and to prove thee and to know what was in thine heart, whether thou wouldest keep his commandments or no. So this entire process that the Lord was taking the children of Israel through, as far as living and wandering in the wilderness for 40 years, he was building character. He was building their character. He was trying their patience, seeing if they was going to do and stay on the right path. That's what he was doing it for. He didn't do it just because he felt like bothering somebody. No, there was a reason behind it. Go ahead. Verse 3.
And he humbled thee, and suffered thee to hunger, and fed thee with manna, which thou knewest not, neither did thy fathers know, that he might make thee know that man doth not live by bread only, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Lord doth man live. Mm-hmm. Thy raiment waxed not old upon thee, neither did thy foot swell these 40 years. Mm-hmm. Thou shalt also consider in thine heart that as a man chasteneth his son, so the Lord thy God chasteneth thee. Therefore thou shalt keep the commandments of the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways and to fear him. Mm-hmm. For the Lord thy God bringeth thee into a good land, a land of brooks and water, of fountains and depths of the spring, out of valleys and hills, and a land of wheat and barley and vines and fig trees and pomegranates, and land of oil of olive and honey, a land wherein thou shalt eat bread without scarceness, thou shalt not lack anything in it, a land whose stones are iron, and out of whose hills thou mayest dig brass.
Okay, so he let him know, I'm bringing you into a good land, but I have to build your character up before you inherit this land. I'm not going to give this land, this great land where you're going to be prosperous on, to an undeserving people. So the Lord took them the long way around 40 years through the wilderness to prove them, to humble them, to build the character of the nation up to the point to where they will be able to abide and stay in that land that he was trying to bless them with. What verse you at? Verse 10?
Verse 10.
Go ahead.
when thou hast eaten and art full, then thou shalt bless the Lord thy God for the good land which he hath given thee. Beware that thou forget not the Lord thy God, and not keeping his commandments and his judgments and his statutes which I command thee this day.
He said, beware that thou forget not the Lord thy God. Because that's what is easily able to do if everything is going easy going for you. If everything is easy, if everything is lining up and working out perfectly for you, yeah, you're not really going to consider the Lord. That's not going to build any character. You're not, the old saying that they say all the time is you're only tough as what you come up against. So the Lord is going to constantly allow Satan to put you up against things, to prove you, to humble you, to build your character up to where it needs to be for you to make it through the hard times ahead, or make it along the long road or long path of righteousness. Because it's not going to be an easy walk. Just like it wasn't an easy walk for Abraham, he had to endure. It wasn't going to be an easy walk for these people either. The Lord wasn't going to make it easy for them. He wasn't going to make it easy for them because he knew that was only going to create an evil nation. And the Lord is not trying to create an evil nation. He's not trying to create evil individuals. We do that just fine, all on our own. The Lord is trying to create you a better mind, a better spirit, a righteous individual. That's what he's trying to create. What verse was you at? Verse 11. Read verse 11 again.
Beware that thou forget not the Lord thy God, and not keeping his commandments, and his judgments, and his statutes, which I command thee this day. Lest when thou hast eaten and art full, and hast built goodly houses, and dwelt therein.
When everything is going good, when you are full, when you eat and you got a nice house, nice cars, everything is going great. Go ahead.
And when thy herds and thy flocks multiply, and thy silver and thy gold is multiplied, and all that thou hast is multiplied, then thine heart be lifted up.
And then thine heart be lifted up. Go ahead.
And thou forget the Lord thy God, which brought thee forth out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage.
And you forget the Lord thy God that brought you up out of the house of Egypt, out of the land, he said, from the house of bondage. See, everything is going good, then you're not considering God. You're not considering what he wants you to do. Because everything is going good. Everything is going fine. So that's why he led them that long 40-year path to prepare them to stay the course. In regardless of what persecutions or obstacles may come along the way. Because they faced a lot of obstacles in that wilderness 40 years. But for the nation that came out of that wilderness, they had good character. Very good character, to the point to, if you was to skip all the way to Joshua, I believe the first chapter, Judges, the first chapter, it lets you know that generation that came out of the wilderness that the Lord is talking to right here, that was on their way to inherit the land, that generation right there was righteous to the last dying soul. It was the generation after them that didn't go through all the trials and tribulations, that didn't have to worry about wandering in the desert 40 years and getting bit by snakes and the ground opening up and having to eat manna and suffering thirst. That generation got off the path. But this generation right here that the Lord built their character up, this was a righteous generation. And the Bible lets us know that. Where you at?
Verse 14. 15.
Okay, go ahead.
Who led thee through that great and terrible wilderness, wherein were fiery serpents and scorpions and drought, when there was no water, who brought thee forth water out of the rock of flint.
See, they will remember that. See, you will remember that. That will keep you mindful of how you behave if you had to deal with these type of situations. He said, at verse 15, he said, who led thee through a great and terrible wilderness, wherein were fiery serpents and scorpions and drought, wherein there was no water, who brought thee forth water out of the rock of flint. Go ahead.
Who fed thee in the wilderness with manna, which thy fathers knew not, that he might humble thee, and that he might prove thee to do thee good at thy latter end.
Because that's what the Lord is trying to do. He has great intentions for his servants when he comes back and puts everything in order. But you have to prove yourself. He has to prove you. He has to take you through some things. So when you get that perfect body or that all-powerful body. He's not giving it to a bad character individual. So he's building the character up through the things he take you through along the road. And you have to be willing to understand that that's what it's going to take, and you're going to have to endure all those things. Where you at? Verse 17?
Verse 17.
Go ahead.
And now say in thine heart, my power and the might of mine hand have gotten me this wealth.
Because that's what you would do. You would think that you have done something. You have accomplished something, that God's hand was not in on the accomplishments that we all make throughout our lives. You know, when we do things or accomplish things, you know, we have the tendency to look back on what we feel as if we've done, or what we feel as if we've sacrificed to make that happen, which that's all well and good, but we can't forget what God is doing. And he's going to let you know that right here. He said, and thou say in thine heart, my power and the might of mine hand have got me this wealth. Go ahead, verse 18.
But thou shalt remember the Lord thy God, for it is he that giveth thee power to get wealth.
It is he that giveth thee power to get wealth. God is the one. God is the one that gives you the power to do anything that you accomplish in life. We have to attribute all our accomplishments to God, because without him giving us the power, the mind, the strength, the endurance, the character to do the things that we get done, then it won't never happen. So he said, read verse 18 again.
But thou shalt remember the Lord thy God, for it is he that giveth thee power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant, which he sware unto thy fathers, as it is this day.
He's the one that's doing that. But let's go to Romans the 8th chapter. Let's go to Romans the 8th chapter. So that's what the Lord was telling them. That's why he took them through that long, hard road. Because that was building the character of the people. So what do you think he's going to do with each and every one of us? It's going to be a long, hard road. A road of fiery serpents. Yes, people are going to bite at you. They're going to gnash at you with their teeth. They're going to talk bad about you. They're going to do anything that they possibly can to make you not stay on the path to righteousness. That's just naturally what Satan is going to do. So we have to know that and look forward to it. And like Paul say, glory in tribulations, because that's what's going to build patience and everything that comes along with it. Romans, the 8th chapter. And when you get there, we're going to start reading at verse 35. Romans 8 and verse 35. Just pay attention to what Paul says right here. Romans 8 and verse 35. When you get there, go ahead.
Who shall separate us from the love of Christ?
Who shall separate us? So obviously, people are capable of being separated from doing the right thing, from serving the Lord the right way, or being a disciple of Christ or walking the same path Christ walked. Start it over again, though.
Who shall separate us from the love of Christ?
Mm-hmm.
Shall tribulation, or distress, or persecution, or famine, or nakedness, or peril, or sword?
So Paul said, is you going to let all these bad things that may happen to you separate you? Is you going to let that throw you off? No, you can't do that. You have to stay the course. You have to stay the correct path. Regardless of tribulation and distress and persecution or famine or nakedness or peril or even sword. Sword brings about death. That's what Jesus meant. He said, if you ain't going to bear your cross and follow him, you cannot be his disciple. You got to be willing to serve God even up until the point of you being killed for his name's sake. Go ahead, verse 36.
As it is written, for thy sake we are killed all the day long. We are accounted as sheep for the slaughter.
Mm-hmm.
Nay, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him that loved us.
We are more than conquerors. So what is that? You know, you're not going to beat everything that you find yourself up against. You're not going to win all the time. See, that's the problem with people. When they find themselves in the losing the battle, then they automatically, oh man, this can't be right. This is a problem. I can't take it no more. No. You got to understand that there's going to be a lot of losses taken for you to find yourself living in eternity with God. You're going to take a lot of losses along the way. A lot of losses. So he said, nay, in all things we are more than conquerors through him that loved us. Go ahead.
For I am persuaded that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of God, which is in Christ Jesus our Lord.
You can't let none of those things bother you. You can't let none of those things throw you off or distract you from the path that the Lord has set you on. Just like Abraham couldn't let anything that happened distract him from the path that the Lord put him on. So we got to understand, but that's what's going to come. That's part of it. This is part of the walk. This is definitely part of the walk. Let's go to Hebrews, the 10th chapter. Back to Hebrews real quick. Hebrews, the 10th chapter. Hebrews, the 10th chapter. And when you get there, we're going to start reading at verse 35. Hebrews, the 10th chapter. And when you get there, my son, start reading at verse 35. Hebrews 10 and 35. When you get there, go ahead.
Cast not away, therefore, your confidence, which hath great recompense of reward.
You see what he said right here? He said, cast not away, therefore, your confidence. So you got to be confident in walking the true and righteous path. You have to be confident in knowing that regardless of what happens, regardless of what is going on, regardless of what you come up against, you are doing the right thing. That's why I said that post that brother put up on Facebook hit home with me when it said, nobody suffers more than somebody trying to do the right thing. Because that's just what comes with it. So you got to be confident that, you're doing right. And the only way to be confident is to know and expect it. And do what Paul say, glory in it. Glory in it. So he said, cast not away, therefore, your confidence, with which have great recompense of reward. This is a great reward for enduring these tribulations. This is a great reward in bearing your cross and following Christ, even up until the point of death. There's a great reward in that. It was a great reward for Christ when he did the right thing. He came by the grave, and the first thing he said was, all power is given to me with heaven and earth. That's a great reward. But it's going to come at a cost. And you have to consider the cost. Just like we read in the beginning what Jesus was telling you about the master builder and the king going to war. You got to consider the cost. And know and expect the losses that's going to come with it. Because that's what a cost is. A cost is a loss. You are going to lose something to create something. So if you're trying to create yourself into an immortal being, you might lose all your physical possessions. You might lose all your physical friends. You might lose all your physical family. But you have to count that as done. Count it as nothing. Because what you're working toward is way more valuable. And that's what he's telling you right here. Which have great recompense of reward. Go ahead, verse 36.
For ye have need of patience, that after ye have done the will of God, ye might receive the promise.
Need of patience after you have done the will of God. After you have after you have completed the walk. After you have stayed the course. He said after that, you will receive the promise. Just like Abraham received the promise after he stayed the course. Go ahead.
For yet a little while, he that shall come will come, and will not tarry. Now the just shall live by faith, but if any man draw back, my soul shall have no pleasure in him. You
can't draw back. See, that's why the Lord gives you lessons like the one I'm trying to give you today, and all these examples, because he don't want you to draw back. Because once you draw back, you have gotten off the path of righteousness, and you are putting yourself in the category of the evildoers. So you cannot draw back. You cannot draw back. Once you start, you have to endure. You have to fight through the trials. You have to fight through the tribulations. You have to fight through the persecutions. You have to do that because the only other alternative is death, people. That's why you consider these things. You consider this stuff before you even embark on the road. You do your homework and you make sure that you are prepared for the rough road ahead. Just like Jesus said, you are make sure that you can cover the cost of building a tower. Or you can cover the loss of attacking somebody with 10,000 soldiers when they have 20,000. You have to consider these things when you're walking with God. Go ahead. What verse you at? Verse 39?
Yes.
Go ahead.
But we are not of them who draw back into perdition.
Perdition. What is perdition? Destruction. Because that's what drawing back comes with. Go ahead.
But of them that believe to the saving of the soul.
And you're only going to believe to the saving of the soul if you believe and walk the path all the way to the end. You must endure to the end. Let's go to one more place. 1 Peter, the 5th chapter. And we're going to read 2 verses here, and that'll be it. 1 Peter, the 5th chapter. And when you get there, my son, I want you to start reading at verse 10. 1 Peter 5 and verse 10. And just pay attention to what Peter had to say, because he's going to echo the same sentiment we've been reading all night. And this is one of my favorite scriptures right here. 1 Peter 5 and verse 10. When you get there, my brother, go ahead.
But the God of all grace, who have called us unto his eternal glory by Christ Jesus, after that ye have suffered a while, make you perfect, establish, strengthen, settle you.
Okay, read that again.
But the God of all grace, who have called us unto his eternal glory by Jesus Christ, after that ye have suffered a while.
After that ye have suffered a while. See, that's what comes along with this walk. After that you have suffered a while. Because why is you suffering? Because that's character building. The Lord is building character by your tribulations, by your sufferings. That's what builds character. So that's what he said. But the God of all grace, who hath called us unto his eternal glory by Christ Jesus, after that ye have suffered a while, what would he do?
Make you perfect, establish, strengthen, settle you.
That's what the suffering is going to do. It's going to make you perfect. It's going to establish you. It's going to root you so you don't find yourself in the category of the ones that was on stony ground. So when persecution arises for the word's sake, they have no root of themselves and are easily offended. You won't be that way. So after you have suffered a while, he make you perfect, establish, strengthen, and settle you. Settle you along the right path. And it becomes easier along the road. It becomes easier to deal with the headaches and the tribulations that come with serving the Lord. So he said, but the God of all grace, who hath called us unto his eternal glory by Christ Jesus, after that ye have suffered a while, make you perfect, establish, strengthen, settle you. Go ahead, verse 11.
To him be glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen.
Amen. And that is, after that ye have suffered a while. And I hope you guys got some understanding in the name of Jesus. Till next time, as always, peace.